So
Each one
many
of us
different.
has, yeah, the chance to be the hero of our own story.
Mhm.
And sometimes we take that opportunity and sometimes we don't.
Well, I think also that little bit of sprinkle of magic, which I absolutely love, is that realizing that the call usually comes in the ordinary. It doesn't arrive with trumpets.
I think that's why people refusing the call, or characters refuse the call, because it's easier, and Dr. Joe talks about this a lot too, it's easier to stay in that known, because the unknown is such a scary place, right?
Mhm.
But it's also such an exciting place. Hi, friends. Welcome to this episode of the Bookweaver's Quill. We're so excited to bring you this mini series where we use literature and writing along with Joseph Campbell's hero's journey and cross that over with Dr. Joe Dispenza's work. If you don't mind taking a minute to hit the subscribe button, like and comment this video, that is the best way to support us and help us grow this channel. Thank you so much, and we hope you enjoy.
Welcome to today's podcast, where we are working and sharing about the refusal to the hero's journey's call. And Jackie, you have a couple of questions that we're going to pose.
Yeah, so what underlying reasons lead a hero to refuse the call? And how does Dr. Joe Dispenza's work help us to see this and the parallels that we have with this in our own lives?
Intriguing.
It is a
Mhm.
fascinating idea because a lot of times we think of a story from the moment the hero embarks on the journey. But there's always this part and this tug that happens before the hero rises to the occasion. And that's what we're going to be discussing today.
I was just going to say, and it is so parallel to our own journeys, to our own life journeys, physically, mentally, so
Each one
many
of us
different.
has, yeah, the chance to be the hero of our own story.
Mhm.
And sometimes we take that opportunity and sometimes we don't.
Mhm.
And I think part of that is because we don't necessarily realize that call. We don't realize that it is a call. So, and sometimes the hero in literature can be a little bit more blatant. Hey, you're being called to adventure. But we know that because we're reading it from that perspective. When it comes to our own lives and something happens and it's calling us to go on this adventure, we're like, that's not an adventure. That's just a terrible thing that happened, or that's just a unfortunate thing, or whatever it is. We don't realize that it's actually a call. And so sometimes we might be refusing it just because we don't think it is.
Mhm. And I think it pulls in exactly what our episode last week was about, that we hesitate in believing that
Mhm.
we're being called.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why I think Dr. Joe's work is so important for so many of us, is that when we start to do the work, we're not necessarily sure that we are being called to bring about so many changes, that
Sure.
to believe that meditation and a different mode of thinking will really change a lot of things in our lives.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're pretty
Mhm.
much taught to identify with our limitations. And work like Dr. Joe's teaches us quite the contrary. It gives us back the power that generations and generations of society have taught us to try to ignore, which basically takes the power away from us. And now learning to use Dr. Joe's work and looking at our own lives like the hero's journey gives us that power back again.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Dr. Joe always talks about how sometimes it takes something really big to get us to transform, and that we
Mhm.
don't necessarily need to wait for that to transform. But I can speak for myself that I think sometimes we wait for that thing because it's so it's so powerful. It almost makes us not able to ignore the call to adventure, right? Like the need for
Hmm.
change or transformation. And so I think sometimes we make those choices reluctantly. And I think, Anne
Very
Marie,
much
you
so.
had, mentioned that last week in our
Hmm.
episode. And other times we do it, and probably more powerfully, from when we make a decision from within to say, you know what, I can't live this way anymore. I can't do this anymore. Like, I
Hmm.
need to change. And so in that way, it's basically like, sometimes you can refuse it only for so long. So that's the
Hmm.
kicking and screaming, you're
Right,
going into it, but
exactly.
you're kicking and screaming. And of course, the other side to that is not a refusal, but it's just so blatant and so big you just can't ignore it.
Hero's journey is not usually a comfortable place to be.
No. Mm-mm.
So a lot of people would not go willingly because you know that even if it's for your own better good or for the better good of those you love, you know that you are going to descend into the depths before you come back out again. That's just the way it works.
Hmm. Yeah, very much so.
If I could give somebody advice, I would be like, just pretend you are a hero that has been called to adventure. I've been actually looking at it from that way. What if you were the hero and you're being called? Like, what choices do you make? How do you live? How do you change your life? And through the lens of Dr. Joe's work, I think it makes it all the more powerful.
Very much
Yeah.
so.
Hmm. Well, I think also that little bit of sprinkle of magic, which I absolutely love, is that realizing that the call usually comes in the ordinary. It
Mhm.
doesn't arrive with trumpets or
Right.
flags or bands or all of that. It comes to us in the ordinary. And then our willingness to engage is what brings it into the extraordinary.
Yeah.
But it's work.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mhm.
work. And it's, you know, fringed with lack of confidence sometimes and fear. So
Mm-hmm.
to elicit comfort and courage, that's part of the journey.
I think that's why people refuse it sometimes, like refusing the call, or characters refuse the call, because it's easier, and Dr. Joe talks about this a lot too. It's easier to stay in that area in that known, right? It's easier to stay in the known. It's easier to stay where it's comfortable. It's easier
Mhm.
to stay where, even if you are living by hormones of stress, it's what you know. And so it's easy. And so this idea of going from the known to the unknown and then being in the unknown is what I think prompts the refusal, because the unknown is such a scary place, right?
Mhm.
But it's also such an exciting place. And if you follow the hero's journey, it's the same thing. Like when you accept the call, whoa, this is super exciting over here, but also frightening, you know? So,
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah,
yeah.
very much so. Well, if you'd like, I'll jump into my first reading. Is that
Sure.
okay?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
great.
as I said, I'll be reading from The Old Man's Beard, and I have my one of my favorite characters, which is the old woman. And I do give them names here and there in the book, but then again, I don't like their names. So I like I kind of stay with. But this character, I just enjoy very much her determination to make things work, but at the same time, she isn't sure that they're really working. So that's the whole thing. The old woman knelt among the rows of radishes, loosening the dark earth with careful fingers. One by one, she lifted them from the soil, brushing away the dirt and placing them in her basket. It was work she had done for years, work she understood. Yet that morning, something felt different. Beyond the garden, the pine forest stood silent and watchful. Sunlight slipped between the tall trunks, laying a narrow ribbon of gold across the forest floor. The path leading into the trees seemed clearer than she remembered, as though it had been waiting for her. She paused. A sudden wind rushed through the pine trees. The branches swayed and bent, their needles whispering against one another. What began as a rustling quickly grew into a chorus of movement, as though the forest had inhaled all at once. The old woman looked up, and the sound faded. She waited, and then she shook her head and returned to her work. Another radish, another handful of weeds. A few moments later, a burst of bird song erupted from the pines. Not one bird, many. Their chirps and calls overlapped in lively conversation, filling the morning air with an insistence that she found herself looking towards the path again. The forest seemed suddenly awake, watching and waiting. The old woman lowered her gaze and brushed dirt from a radish. Yet an uneasiness remained. She could not explain why. And then it happened. No wind, no birds, no rustling leaves, but a profound silence settled over the garden. The kind of silence that feels less like an absence and more like a presence. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. The old woman slowly straightened. Her eyes found the path leading between the pines. For a moment, she imagined setting down her basket and following it. She imagined stepping beneath the green canopy where shadows and sunlight danced together. She imagined discovering whatever waited beyond the bend. And then her thoughts drifted to the old man. How many times had he returned from those woods with a light in his eyes she could not understand? How many times had he emerged from beneath the pines, carrying some quiet joy that seemed to belong only to him? A knot tightened within her chest. What did the forest give him that it had never given to her? She remembered the way he would sit by the fire afterward, smiling to himself as though he carried some secret friendship with the trees. Even his beard seemed to catch the sunlight differently when he returned. Jealousy gripped her unexpectedly. It wasn't fair. She had worked just as hard. She had risen before dawn, tended the garden, cooked the meals, mended what was torn, and carried the burdens of ordinary days. Yet the old man wandered around the pines and returned with a happiness she could neither claim nor explain. For the briefest moment, she wondered if the forest was offering her the same invitation. But almost immediately, fear arrived. Why should I go? What could possibly be there for me? I've spent my whole life doing what needed to be done. What would a forest want with an old woman? The silence lingered, as though waiting for her answer. The old woman's jaw tightened. If the forest wished to speak to me, she muttered, gripping a radish so tightly that it crumbled between her fingers. It had years to do so. The path remained still, and the silence to her felt like an insult. A sharp anger rose within her. No, she said aloud, startling a nearby sparrow. She stood and clutched the basket against her side. I am too old for mysterious paths and foolish wanderings. If the forest has something to say, it can say it from where I stand. The pines offered no reply, only silence. With harried footsteps, she gathered the last of the radishes and marched toward home, refusing to look back.
That's powerful.
Yeah, there's a lot for me. There's a lot of imagery and references to the hero's journey and the fact that, she wants it so much. And she wants it, but she doesn't want to give up what is familiar to her. So I find so many connections to Dr. Joe's work.
Sure.
She wants something, but in order to do that, the old man goes into the forest. It's a meditative experience. She doesn't want to give up what she would need to give up to have that experience.
Yeah.
So, but I like her.
Yeah.
I do.
Well, she represents so many of us, right? And so much of what happens when something does happen to us and how we want to do something, but we're afraid or we want to stay in the comfort zone, right? So she's such a representation of so much of us. And he's also a representation of so much of us. And so it's really nice to see both sides. It's almost like she's the before, right? And he's the after kind of deal. He's basically who she could become, right? Like, and she sees like that little glimpse of, she hears the birds and then the silence and stuff. And it's almost like it's beckoning to her, but she doesn't.
Yeah, but what I feel like in one of our previous episodes, we had talked about the unseen and how that affects our lives. And I feel that's one of the things that the old woman does not see, that she's already immersed in, I don't want to say the miraculous, but the extraordinary, because she plants the seeds for the radishes and all the other things that are in her garden. And so that magic takes place beneath the soil. And then, she has the fruits of her labor as she's picking everything for them to be able to eat. And that's part of an experience too, but she doesn't even see that. She's so practical and so determined to stay in that world that she doesn't see that she has her hands in that other world, but she doesn't see that.
Right.
She just doesn't see them. And I love the one part where she gets a little glimpse of it, and then she gets so angry that she kind of almost crushes the the radish. Yeah. So
That made me think a lot of like human nature, like this spite that she had, that he has this experience and that she doesn't. And I remember being a child and seeing my sister do some extraordinary things, and I was not doing those things, and how spiteful I felt. And then I felt so bad, but I mean, I just had to go and try, like I just didn't even try to do the things. It was like almost like it was inaccessible for me, even though I could see her doing it. And I think that that really ties back to Dr. Joe's work again, because how many times do we see somebody or doing something extraordinary and then we say, but that's them.
Right.
That's them, that's not me. And then you hear the testimonials and you're like, but that person was able to do it because they have a, like a stronger mental than I have, or they, have something that I don't have, or, well, if it really wanted, then I would have a sign, like this, the forest would have come and it would have said to me, come on, old woman, like, because sometimes we're looking for just that little bit more to persuade us that, yes, that call really is for us. But that's what we were saying earlier, is that sometimes we have to make that very last step. The signs only go so far, and then the work comes from us taking that step.
Right. And we have to let go. We have to realize that we need to give something to get something, and we need to go to that other realm, that other place. Which is what he does, what the old man does when he walks into the forest, into the pine forest. He goes, that's where the magic happens, as he hears the birds, sees the wind, hears the wind, feels the wind. I mean, all of his senses, are then heightened. Yeah. So,
he was forest bathing.
yes, he certainly was. Thank you for letting me read it.
Of course, that was great. Jackie, do you want to go next?
Sure, I'll go next. Let me just pull it up. I will be reading off of my computer, and this excerpt is from a Tale of Tide and Time, which is my newest unpublished novel. The context is that the main character's sister has recently disappeared along with 8 other girls that were participating in a competition that would lead one person to be like a surrogate empress, because the actual empress has gone missing, and they do this ceremony, and it's kind of like a bunch of trials that allows one girl to become the surrogate empress. And so the main character's sister has disappeared, her twin sister, and the main character's boyfriend, arranged future husband, has said that he's going to help, and in the end he does not really help to send out search parties or whatnot to get the girls back. So that's the context. I shall pull it up now. Okay. The crowd dissolved like melting snow, the sound of boots on cobblestones replacing voices. Lanterns flickered overhead, casting long crooked shadows as people slipped away into the dark. I stood there, numb, barely breathing, clutching Eno's tiny hand, watching Ebba stalk ahead, fists clenched. This isn't right, Ebba spat. Her voice, usually careful, even timid, sounded sharp, like glass beginning to crack. We have to do something. My feet scraped the cobblestone, legs aching. We had a vote, I murmured. We lost. And you're just going to accept that? She turned, disbelief blazing in her eyes. Frode lied. He said they'd consider it, but he voted against it. He let them give up. I didn't respond. Ebba's tears spilled fast. If you don't do anything, I will. Me too, Eno parroted, throwing her fist in the air, imitating her sister's every move. We'll find them ourselves. Oh, no, you won't. I shook my head, too tired to raise my voice. That's not the way things work. Why not? Ebba stopped, blocking my path. Why does everyone keep telling us to do nothing when the people we love are the ones missing? The weight of her words cut like knives. The world tilted, a smear of snow and shadows and shame. We already lost Mama, she whispered, voice shaky. We can't lose Annalise, too. I froze. Something cracked inside. Not loud. Not sharp or showy. Just quiet. Like the slow splinter of a frozen pond, giving way beneath too much weight. I wanted to say yes. To run into the night screaming Annalise's name. To march to that castle and tear apart every inch of the mountain itself, if that's what it takes to find her. I wanted to be the girl they whispered about as I passed, not with mockery or scorn, but with awe and admiration. To be the girl they talked about in stories, the girl who didn't give up. But that wasn't me. My legs couldn't carry me through snowdrifts and up staircases. They could barely carry me home. And I hated myself for it. I'm sorry, Ebba, I said, sliding my key into the lock. I'll do everything while you're gone, she pleaded. I'll take care of Eno. I'll make dinner. Please just... I'm a big girl, Eno added, trying to sound grown up as I lifted her over the threshold. I know, I said softly. You both are, but you shouldn't have to be. Ebba's lip quivered. Then why don't you trust me? I do. My voice caught. I pressed my palm over my nose, stopping the burnt of pent-up tears. I wanted more than anything to go out and search for Annalise, to prove I wasn't worthless or afraid. It's not that I don't want to go. The rest was hardly a whisper. I can't.
Your visual imagery is riveting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love, the cracked glass, and the way you talk about the cold, the ice and all. Oh my goodness. It's really, yeah, your descriptions are beautiful
Thank you.
and riveting, because you can
Yeah.
see it, you can hear it. Yeah, it's very well done, Jackie.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I love her refusal because she loves her sister so much and she wants so badly to find her, but it's like she wants someone else to do it.
Hmm.
She can't bring herself to, take that step because of her beliefs about herself.
Because of her physical ailment,
Hmm.
which Dr. Joe would have something certainly to say.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
And so she sees herself as her limitation all the time.
Hmm.
And even in the future, she'll go to somebody else rather than trying to seek the strength from within. She
Hmm.
goes and makes a trade with a powerful woman that is going to make her life very difficult.
Hmm.
Hmm.
So, and that's kind of what we do. That's kind of
Yeah.
what we do. We will barter away things. Will in our own lives, like with Dr. Joe, people that don't do the type of work that Dr. Joe talks to us about, will go searching out secret potions and,
Hmm.
magical remedies and things of that nature that are always in somebody else's hands, and will be paying the money or paying the price for this and that, when a lot of times perhaps the actual answer is really within ourselves.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I think a lot of times it comes from when something happens, it's a panic sets in or some kind of fear or panic. And I can say, just from my own experience, like after my mom died, I went into that, right? Like I went into this panic and fear, and Anna Marie knows because I talked to her a million times about it. And it's something that in its own way was a refusal of the call, because it was like, I would put all of my energy into, well, what food do I have to eat to do this? And what things do I have to do? And what kind of whatever, when really I could have been spending all of my time immersed in the work and changing the reality. But, like Dr. Joe points, when something traumatic happens, that changes your brain, right? So, once your brain is rewired into that experience, you start producing different chemicals and stuff like that, and that very much happened to me. So that refusal sometimes is because we get this initial sense of the trauma or the experience, and we start putting it into things outside of us because we don't realize the power that we have within us. And
Hmm.
so it's just like, for me, it's been 8 years, and I've been studying this stuff since 2016. I did not start putting the work in until 2 months ago. So,
Mhm.
Hmm.
right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
How many times with like Dr. Joe's work do you think like you get onto like this high with everything, and you're like totally into it, and you're like, I'm gonna manifest this, and it's like an
mhm,
amazing like, and you start having things happen, and things are
mhm,
happening, like little signs, maybe it's not there yet, but you get these little signs that things, you're on the right track, you're moving forward, and then you have like, I don't know, a migraine, something simple like that, you're like, give me that, Bill.
yeah,
No, if you
exactly.
could manifest
You
so
go
much
right back.
more.
Yeah. Mhm, mhm.
And it's like
And
our own limitations and what we really believe, because a lot of it I think is programming. It's past
mhm,
programming. You've
unconscious.
learned, yeah,
Mhm,
you've learned that
Hmm.
when you have this symptom, that that's a solution, and you know that that's a solution, so you reach for that first rather than
right.
even doing what
It's
you've done the
it's your
work for.
placebo, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You go right back to the unconscious thinking, the unconscious thought, and really what he's teaching is, breaking the habit of that, right? Like becoming
Hmm.
conscious of the unconscious. So, it's like looking at it and going, wait a minute, why am I reaching right for the Advil instead of just, let me take a
Hmm.
minute? Not that there's anything wrong with that. And even he would say that, it's okay, but be conscious of it. It's
Hmm.
like, uh,
Very much so.
yeah.
It's funny, I had my own little mini hero's journey yesterday
Mhm.
because I was driving to a graduation party, and I had the GPS on, but it was forcing me to take the turnpike.
Mm,
Every which way that I tried to, reroute myself, it kept taking me back to the turnpike.
mhm,
And I thought, all right, all right, all right. So I went on to the turnpike, and said I had 11 miles on the turnpike, and I started to panic.
Mm.
And I mean, panic really started only because of the limitations that I was remembering about my own physical health at this particular time. And all that kept shouting in my brain was, I can't get off this road.
Mm.
And once you're in the turnpike, you can't get off
Right.
until you get to the next exit. And the next exit was going to be 11 miles.
Mm.
And I could feel that panic coming in. And I started to remember saying to myself, I am not in that same body.
Right.
I
You're not
have
that person. You're
right.
not that
I have
person.
transcended. And
Right.
I'd feel calm for a second and it would come right back up again.
Mm-hmm.
So it
Oh,
was really my own hero's journey yesterday,
yeah.
staying with the thought that I do not have, and if anything were to happen, and because there's a number, it was hot, I won't go into all of it, but there were a number of cautions that were real.
Right. Right.
And I just kept thinking, no, I am beyond that now. I am
Yeah.
not in that same body. And because I know of my meditations and what I had gotten in my meditation even that morning. So the meditation and prayer and belief all surrounded me. And I thought, all right, I've got these three amigos with me.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
meditation, prayer, and belief
Yeah.
surrounded me. And then I started a little chant about that. And every couple of seconds, I'd look down at my GPS and it would give me another couple, it would say, 8 miles. And I think, all right. So, but
Yeah.
so it was like my own little hero's journey yesterday.
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah. It's funny, it took me a long time for me to understand that the body being the mind. I
Yes,
think that's
that's
what it is.
exactly.
It's like
Hmm.
it took me so long to really comprehend that. I don't know if just like the words would just go in and out and I just didn't really understand it. And then but I knew what the feeling was. I knew it was like when you were having just a normal day, let's say your thoughts are fine, but all of a sudden your body's like responding to something and it's basically controlling you. And then that triggers a
Hmm.
thought. And then you go into that like spiral loop or whatever.
Exactly. Hmm.
Um, and I deal with that still every day with the situation that I'm going through. And I always have to remind myself, like, hey, you're becoming conscious of those thoughts and those feelings. It's actually, you're not just becoming conscious of thoughts, right? You're also becoming conscious of what your body is feeling because we tend to
Exactly.
think that if the body feels something, we automatically trust that it's bad and it's wrong, like
Hmm.
but actually, if the body's just repeating a pattern every single day, it's not really telling you the truth. It's just telling you what it knows,
Hmm.
It's telling what it's been programmed, as you were saying,
Exactly.
Nikki.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
another thought to consider.
Right.
All right, well, I guess I'll read. Mine is a little bit
Excuse me.
longer, and I think that when I'm editing this, if it's too long, I'll probably chop it, but I just for context, I am going to read it all. So I actually chose a little bit of a different part. It's from The Air of Light and Shadows that I wrote under Stella Jade. It's an adult romantasy, and the character that I'm talking about actually becomes more prevalent in the subsequent books. He is in this book. He happens to work for a mafia, and he's pretty high up on the rank here, um, by default because of their family history. And so he's very much a practical guy. He's not a mystical guy, and he's not a supernatural guy. He's just a very practical person who is involved in some pretty bad stuff. So his brother is in love with the main character, but he's also in the mafia, and now they are witness to something supernatural that then he's called to and tries with all of his might to refuse. Okay, I'm going to be reading off my computer. Okay. Last night, after the meeting, I went to the farmhouse. Needed to blow off some steam after the whole... Anyway, I heard them, Redcap and Cedric. Dean took a beat before saying, I saw something in that farmhouse, Melio. Redcap communicated with someone. It was something, a shadow figure. It just materialized into an entity and it spoke. Gave him orders. And trust me when I say that thing was something of nightmares even you and I couldn't stomach. Is this some kind of Halloween prank? Miles asked. It wasn't like Dean to make light of, well, anything, and he wasn't the type to engage in fairy tales, but still, Miles had to ask. What really concerned Miles was that Dean only called him Melio when he was worried. When Dean didn't respond, Miles continued. What did it say? He could sense the worry in Dean's face, his tense shoulders, his darting wide eyes. Everything is playing out according to the prophecy. What exactly does that mean? It means all of this is meant to happen and we can't stop it, so if we're smart, we'll let it happen and get the hell out of here. And you thought telling the FBI this would win you points, Dean? You saw that beast, Miles. You saw it. If you saw what I saw in that farmhouse, that thing, it doesn't matter now. We're leaving tonight. I can't leave, Dean. She's one of them, Miles, Dean argued. Who? Lizzie, she's one of them. One of whatever Redcap and Cedric are. No, she isn't. Yes, she is, Miles, and you need to let her go. They need her and that pendant to carry out their mission. We're leaving. I've got our passports. The director is granting me immunity for my help. They won't let me leave, Dean, Miles said. I've hurt too many people. And I haven't, Dean asked. Are you kidding me, Dean? All these years you never got your hands dirty, Miles said. Not once. I was Ludwig's puppet, Dean. I was the one who did the hard work. You sat in a mansion and gave the orders, but I stained my hands getting the jobs done. Maybe they granted you immunity, but they'll never let me out of here alive. Screw you, Miles. Like either of us had a choice. The two brothers stayed quiet then, not wanting to argue any further. Miles's mind raced. He knew he should have come clean with Lizzie right away. Of course, there was a good chance she wouldn't have wanted to start a relationship with him. You go back there, they'll kill you on the spot, Miles, Dean said, seemingly reading Miles's thoughts. I need you to stay away. You need to go, Miles said. I get it. Take Mom and go, but I'm staying, Dean. I'm staying. I'm going to help Lizzie. I'm not letting you go back there. I'm not asking for your permission, Miles argued. I outrank you, Miles, Dean retorted. Just because Ludwig is dead doesn't mean you can do whatever you want. A little hypocritical coming from the guy who just gave intel to the FBI, Miles yelled. Ludwig is dead, and so is this family. Miles softened his tone then. You have to give this to me, Dean. One thing I can do right with my life. It's the only thing I can do to make me feel like my life isn't wasted. You'll die, Miles. So if I die, my life wasn't a waste. Fine, Dean said, gritting his teeth and pushing his duffel bag with his hands, letting Miles see his frustration. But you're not going back alone. I'm coming with you. No, Miles shook his head. Get out of here. I'm going to stay and help Lizzie until the end. Dean just stood there, his eyes wild and unruly. Damn it, Emilio, he said, slamming his fists on top of the duffel bag. When are you going to learn you're my brother, and I'm not abandoning you?
That was your ability to keep the action going like that.
Mm-hmm.
That was excellent.
What I love about this particular scene is that this, I mean, for those people who have read the book, know that these are not the quote unquote main characters. But Stephanie did a fabulous job having so many characters have their own like full character arcs and full journeys of their own. And so that makes this so cool that this isn't Lizzie. This isn't My favorite Brody. Hashtag Brody fan club coming soon.
I'm putting that on the screen.
But yes.
Hashtag Brody fan club.
Hashtag Brody candle.
Hashtag get a Brody candle.
But yeah, it's such a. I love your dialogue. I absolutely love dialogue.
Yeah. Yeah. It carries the reader in such a profound way. Yeah. I mean, you're right there. You're right there.
Think about how their trajectory turns out. You know, when they get to book 2, they cross through this portal. They end up crossing through, and Dean, who you know, Miles has his own journey. Dean is again presented with this opportunity to make this call to adventure, and as reluctant as he is, again, he realizes the importance of and the danger of where he is and what he can do and his contribution to that. And so he does eventually accept the call, which allows him to move forward. He sees this supernatural event, one might even say has this mystical experience, and he's not, he believes it but doesn't believe it. You know, there's this it's like, did you see that? Like, there's no way I could be the only person who has experienced this, you know, crazy thing. And what he sees in the farmhouse is really one of these shadow entities from Algoria. And it's a very, very powerful entity who's working with the Dark Elven King. So he's just, this has blown his mind. Like, he's like, I need to get the heck out of here. You know, which I think if you equate it to, you know, our lives, something crazy happens or something, it could be very ordinary, but it could also be something that is out of our scope. And it's so out of our scope that it, you know, it throws us back, and we then say, oh my goodness, like, I want to get the heck out of here. I'm going to run, you know, survival mode, get out.
Yeah, exactly. Which is what I think the old lady does.
The
experience that she had. She doesn't turn around because she doesn't want to see it again.
Right. Exactly.
She just doesn't want to experience it again. Yeah, very much so.
Right.
And Jackie, the same for you, stepping over that threshold and just knowing, you know. And after listening to today's podcast, where do you think in your own life that you might have refused the call? Feel comfortable in jotting things down and sending it to us. We'd be happy to interact or do another whole podcast about it.
Absolutely.
Yes. And Steph, if I'm not mistaken, we'll be doing the next episode in this series.
Yes. So the next episode will be focusing on supernatural aid, and that should be really fun also to equate that to Dr. Joe's work, because we can bring in all kinds of mystical experiences and things that we see that call to us. And yeah, so that's...
And I just, the one last little thing I'd like to say is this, that when we have a mystical experience, it's our own. It's very, very, very hard to put into words for someone else to understand.
Yeah.
So a mystical experience is really a gift from ourselves to ourselves as we process through things.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for being here with us today. And Jackie, I'm going to let you wrap us up with the subscribing.
Yeah, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment on this video. It inspires us to keep bringing you more content.
Awesome. All right, guys, we'll see you next time. Bye.